Hi, everyone, and thanks for joining us. I'm Teresa Ojinma from Home Fitness Plus, and I'm an exercise physiologist, kinesiologist, and essential somatic movement teacher. I have Sarah with us today to share a little bit about her journey in somatic movement education. She started taking classes about a year ago when I was teaching them in the studio. And just recently, because of the COVID shutdown, I've in April started teaching classes online. So I have asked her to share a little bit about what she's experienced and the benefits of somatic movement education, and also her learning experiences in the class, in a studio format, and also online, and how it's changed her life. So, Sarah, welcome.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
So tell us a little bit about yourself.
So I am 54 years old. I'm a university instructor. I teach at a university out here in Surrey. And, you know, I can't believe it's been a year because there's just been so much going on for me. But just as a bit of a background, I've always sort of had struggles with movement, with my body. I've always had a weight issue. And about 7 years ago, I had open heart surgery. And then about 6 years ago, I had a hip replacement. So there's a lot. And then about a year, maybe 2 years ago, I was diagnosed with fibromyalgia. So I've had a lot of physical things going on, and was really looking for something to help me kind of cope. So I literally stumbled on somatics. I had never heard of it before. I didn't know a thing about it. And I was just, it's sort of the power of the internet, right? I was just Googling, looking for somebody near me who might offer something that could help me deal with a lot of these physical issues. And I found you.
So how did you get led to the somatic movement education?
Really, I found your website, and I just read all the information that was on your website, which was so helpful. And I knew I didn't want, to go to a gym or, any kind of traditional exercise routine. I knew that was not for me. I've done that before. But I saw the information about somatics, and I was just really curious about it. I thought it sounded really profound and different. And so I reached out to you, and you so graciously offered to meet me in person. And we ended up having this great chat about it, and you really kind of gave me some reassurances and some hope that this might be the thing that could help me.
That's great. So what inspired you when you first learned about somatic movement education? Was there something that just, sparked, like turned something on in your mind, something resonated with you when you were learning, either in the workshop or talking to me at the coffee shop? Like,
yeah.
Was there something that just sort of went, oh, I think this is right?
I think the thing that really intrigued me is, I'm a teacher and I'm a learner. That's my jam, right? Like that's my thing. So I was so intrigued about the fact that this was not an exercise program.
Yeah.
That it was something that I could, how it was a way that I could learn more about my own body. So I was really intrigued by that because, you know, my mom was a nurse, and so there was always sort of this sort of medical stuff going on at home, and I was always interested in medicine. And the idea of learning how my body was supposed to function or could function more effectively was really resonated with me, and I was just curious.
Yes.
So I signed up for the workshop.
Great. Yeah, and that's, you know, somatic movement education is first and foremost an education, right? We're training the brain, we're relearning how to make that connection from our brain to our muscles. And
Yeah.
also to end that self-awareness and that using the sensory motor feedback loop to get that education about ourselves, which we really don't spend that time to get to know ourselves.
We don't, and it's so
that way.
fascinating. Like it's really fascinating because you know, once you start it, you start, like it spills over into your life, because you're doing it, you know, during the class, and you're working on, you know, a particular movement or a particular reaction or, you know, something like that. But then, you know, you notice when you're walking to the parking lot,
Yeah.
you know, like, oh, I'm moving this way, or, oh yeah, I remember Teresa said, you know, this is the walking motion. Am I moving like that the way we did in class? Like, you start thinking like, oh, you know, that's something we learned about in somatics. So
Right.
it just became really, it was just so fascinating to me.
And applicable, right? Is something you're applying every single day because that self-awareness is there, and because of the knowledge you're gaining, you're finding how it's applying everywhere else in your life.
You know, it's one of those things that you start seeing everywhere, right? Because you're moving all the time, no matter what you're doing, and you just start making that connection. It's not like you go to the gym, you do your exercises, you know, and then you go home and go back into your routine. It's like there's a real integration.
Yes.
Between what you're doing in the class and what you're doing in your life.
Exactly. So how did learning this profound practice lead to positive changes in your life?
Well, it's quite interesting and kind of funny, actually, because you know, I'm not a big athletic person, and you know, I still struggle with some movement, but it really, like I said, it spilled over. So I just found a real confidence.
Yes.
Initially in my ability to move my body and reconnect with my body. And then I started noticing other things in my life, like my attitude about my body started changing. And then my attitude about, you know, how I see myself, how I treat myself, how I take care of my home, how I do my work, you know, all of these things. So I started looking at my finances, which you would never think would be something that comes out of somatics, but
Right.
I started looking at my budgeting. I started looking at my nutrition. I started looking at other forms of movement. So I joined a yoga class. So it really just like blossomed quite incredibly, actually.
Yeah. So that's, you know, that is very incredible with this practice. I mean, it has the word movement in it, but because it's an education, you're actually learning how to become more self-aware. And when we're more self-aware and we have more control over, the choices that we're making, because we're sensing and feeling a lot more, and then it infiltrates all other areas of our life. So when we're, when normally we would say yes to stuff, even though we wouldn't want to do it, but our brain sort of overrides, other things override our decisions. When we can sense, if we're asked a question or we're asked something of ourselves that is just too much, where we would normally say yes, we can sense, and our body will react.
Mm-hmm.
If we're in connection, if we're in tune with that, we can sense it and go, oh, no, we know what that's creating in our body. If I say yes to that, this isn't going to be good for me. So it's sort of, yeah.
And the other thing that was really profound for me in the class, just kind of goes with what you're saying, is that it sort of was for the first time that I ever did any kind of a movement where there was no right or wrong. And I wasn't trying to emulate, how the teacher does it.
Right.
Or how the coach does it, or anything like that. It was just, how do I do it? So it really gave me a real sense of, I would say, empowerment and respect, but also acceptance. Yeah. So when I started yoga, I mean, I've done yoga before, but I haven't done it for years. And I started feeling much more confident in, changing things so that I could do them more easily, using props, maybe not doing a movement because, I didn't feel like it hurt, it wasn't quite right for me. Like, just having that confidence to be able to say, I think I need to do this a little bit differently for me.
And that's okay.
And that's okay. Exactly. I honestly, I would say that's probably the biggest kind of blessing for me, because I've never experienced that with body movement before.
Right. So that's huge, having that confidence and knowing that, I don't have to move like everyone else in the class. I don't have to move like my teacher. There's no right or wrong. And then you had that confidence to go, because of somatic movement education, and you're learning in a yoga class, and maybe the movement looks like it needs to go to a certain endpoint or distance, and you're feeling, no, I think I'm going to move in this way because I already know how my body moves this way, and it's okay.
And it's okay. I think that's really the biggest piece of it, is however your body is moving is okay.
Exactly.
Honestly, that kind of blew my mind. Like, I remember asking you in a class once, you were giving us some cues for a movement, and I was like, oh, am I supposed to do it like this, or should I do this, or like, I don't, and you were like, no, there is no should, there is no doing it, a particular kind of way. You just do it the way your body needs to do it. Yeah. And that was just so liberating for me.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And I mean, that's what this practice is all about, is freedom. Thomas Hanna's biggest question was, why are people not free? Why are people not free? We are intelligent beings. We have the ability to self-sense. We have the ability to self-teach. We have the ability to self-learn. We have the ability to self-organize, self-regulate, and ultimately self-heal. That's self-correcting. So
yeah, self-correcting, yeah. And so, and through somatics, you become aware of so many habitual things that you are doing all the time. right? And, you know, I mean, it's really kind of mind blowing when you think, oh, my back hurts because I'm always doing this, you know.
Right.
Well, why am I always doing that? Why am I always, like, I have chronic shortness of breath since I've had my heart surgery, which I'm still working on, you know, improving. But through somatics, I realized I was constantly holding my breath when I was walking because I was just so tense,
Yeah.
right? Because of other, you know, so many other things. So I was holding my breath. Well, no wonder I'm short of breath.
Yeah.
So I'm working on trying to kind of relax that reaction so
Yeah.
that I can actually breathe.
Yes. And now
And
you have that
I
awareness,
wouldn't have known that otherwise.
right? It's that awareness, right?
Absolutely.
You're developing that self-awareness, and now when you're walking or when you're doing certain activities, you're noticing when you're holding your breath. And I think, you know, a lot of people in our society are holding their breath, or they're just not breathing, you know, to their full lung capacity.
Yes.
And shallow breathing is connected to heart disease. So
Yeah.
it's, you
And
know,
chronic
the big
fatigue
two organs
and
that suffer in response to shallow breathing are your heart and your brain. So it's, yeah, but having that knowledge and having that awareness, you now have control to change it. And that's really what this practice is all about. It's, you know, what am I sensing? What am I feeling? Okay, now I have conscious control over this pattern or over this, what I'm feeling. Now I can change it. So, you know, if we're talking about the trauma reflexes, these are in patterns. So we contract, you know, we use movement technique that takes you into that ability to get conscious control, voluntary control over those movements, release, lengthen, and completely relax them.
and yeah, and the completely relaxed part was so important to me too in the, you know, and that's one of the things that's so lovely about somatics is that, I mean, it's, you know, we're talking about a lot of stuff going on in your head and stuff, but it's very relaxing. It's very meditative. You're so, at least I am very, you know, kind of really focused on what I envision is happening inside my body, you know. So you come out of it and you feel completely rejuvenated.
Right.
So it's really powerful that way. And then the awareness is kind of what happens sort of outside of the classroom or outside of, off your mat.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, you know, it's kind of funny in a way that we have to teach ourselves to relax.
Yeah.
I mean, that, like, many people skip that integration phase of that, just
Well,
completely relaxing and completely
relaxing.
letting the tension go and completely relaxing. But if you think about it, it's being tense is also a habit, because being in that contracted state and being in a tensed state or a stressful state all the time, that's it becomes a learned state, because your subconscious now has learned to be in that stressful state. So
Absolutely.
then
Absolutely.
you know, when people come and learn this practice, they have to learn how to completely relax. And they may feel themselves, you know, even when I've had people say, I can't completely let everything go. I can't completely, like, I feel my body still contracting or still really tight. So then it's just, and that's why it's called a practice. Well, now we have to, you know, we have to do it again, or, you know, access that mentally through, you know, the neuromuscular, through the nervous
Yeah. I mean,
system, access it and relax it.
I mean, it really is an incredible process, but it's not magical. it really is a practice that you have to do, you know, like I do it once a week, but I'm going to start doing it, you know, more times a week. And you've even said, you know, really do it every day.
Every day.
And some days, you know, with my chronic pain, I'll wake up in pain. And so I do, you know, the arch and flatten just in bed, just before I even get up.
Mm-hmm.
And I notice immediately that I'm moving better when I first get out of bed.
Yeah.
You know, especially if I've had a really, you know, a really tough day and I'm in a lot of pain the day before. I'll just do, you know, those simple movements, and also the mental focus on, oh, okay, my body's really in pain right now. Like, how can I relax it?
Yes.
You know, and I'll do that first thing in the morning. And then I notice immediately that I'm just moving better when I get out of bed.
Yes. I love it. I love that you brought this up, because that is exactly what this is. It's an active process, right?
Yeah.
It's not passive. You can't take a pill. You can't have, you know, just lay there and have someone fix you or touch you or move you or massage you or whatever. It is first and foremost in education. Education is active. Whatever you put into it is what you're going to get out of it. And the more you do it, the better you're going to get at it.
Yeah, and you're constantly learning too. Like,
yes,
that's the thing, is even though we do, you know, a lot of the same movements, it's different every time, because your body, you come to the practice in a different state.
soma.
Yeah, a different soma every time.
Yes.
Right. So like some days, oh, my back is really hurting, or oh, I notice I'm really stiff in the leg, or, you know, well, what's going on there, or, you know, my shoulder, or, you know, so yeah, it's different every time. So you're, you know, and for someone like me who's a big learner, that's interesting and fascinating.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I could care less about, you know, lifting a dumbbell 600 times. Like, I don't care. I'll get bored. I'll just get bored. But this is not boring to me.
Yeah.
Because it's always new.
Yes. Absolutely. Yeah. And just to go back to, also for someone who's watching this and doesn't know what a soma is,
Yes.
we just brought up a term that not everybody will know. It's just a Greek word that means living body. So it's who you are, you know, experiencing yourself from the inside out. It's the first person perspective that no one else has. Yeah. And that soma, that living body inside of us, is constantly changing to whatever we're responding to daily. So that's why, even though we do this practice every day, even though we're doing, you know, somatic movement every day, we're experiencing it differently, because we show up differently. Like, for example, if you were driving to class and you had to slam on the brakes really quickly, really hard on the way to class, you're going to enter class quite differently than, you know, had that not have happened.
Exactly.
Or even from week to week. Like, I know when my students walk through the classroom, objectively, their bodies all look the same. Oh yeah, I recognize them. But as a somatic movement teacher, I'm consciously aware. Every single class, I'm teaching new somas. I'm teaching different somas. So, you know, maybe there will be similar movements, but they're going to feel it differently. They're going to experience it differently. Something else is going to catch their attention because of what they've been through and what they've responded to in that time since the last class, or since the last time they did their own home practice or
from one day to the next.
Yeah.
I think the other thing for me that's really important to mention, because it might resonate with some people, is that, you know, because that I've always been sort of disconnected from my body which I think a lot of people are.
Mm-hmm.
And this kind of goes back to what you were saying, so, I've done a lot of education. I've done a lot of intellectual development,
Yeah.
but I sort of cut myself off here for a long, long, long time. And, this is really helping me reintegrate like what's going on up here and what's going on in my body.
Yes.
Because there really was for me that separation. And, I think a lot of people do that where they just think, oh, well, my body will just do it. And then, then we turn 50 and, oh, my knee is hurting. Oh, this is hurting. What do you mean my body isn't functioning the way it always does? So it's really helpful to think of like reacquainting yourself with your body.
Yes. Would you say that that's the biggest thing you've learned about yourself?
Yeah, I would say for me, that is really a huge, huge development for me. And part, like a big part of the practice for me is just to check in, like
Yes.
check in with my body. What's happening? How's it going? Yeah. And learning how to support it and, be kind.
And what did you find challenging about this practice? Did you find anything really challenging?
Well, for me, the biggest challenge was sort of pre-COVID was, like just getting out and going to the studio, and like, it was in the winter, it was at night, it was dark. It was just like, that's not for me. So really this is like a silver lining of the pandemic for me, is that you're offering this online, because it's just made it so much more accessible for me. So I think the challenge for me, like with most things, is to just be consistent, and like I said, I want to start doing it more days per week.
Yeah.
Right now we're doing it once a week, and I want to add in that. So, just doing it because I know it's good for me.
Yes.
And being consistent with that. That's probably my biggest challenge in a lot of areas.
I was just going to say that the consistency factor
Consistency is always an issue
with everything, and everything, is how do we make now this become a habit, right? How do we make somatic movement?
I don't know how you would, I think it's going to be different for everybody, but
yeah.
For me, it's really learning about caring for myself.
Yes.
We have this whole big like pop culture thing about self-care.
Yeah.
Now it's like, the new buzzword is self-care. But, I kind of flip it around. So it's about caring for who I am, right? Caring for myself. And, that's a little bit of a mind bend. I think probably for a lot of people, but this is one way to really do that in a meaningful way.
Yes.
Yeah, it's about looking after yourself.
Exactly. That empowerment is huge.
And just because you deserve it.
Exactly. And knowing, that's another thing, right? Really valuing yourself and your self-worth, so that you can put the time in to learn this stuff and really, embrace and learn the power that you have within you. I mean, this is, really, I'm giving cues, but actually I always tell people, you're making these changes. It's your brain, you're changing the way your brain
happens very naturally.
Yeah.
I think that, that might be important for people to hear too, is that, we're talking a lot about learning and education and you know, how your body works. And it might sound a little daunting, but it happens very naturally. Like the movements are so simple that, you know, in some ways you'll probably start off thinking, well, this can't really be doing very much. But it's so simple that it's profound.
Yes.
You know, and so it's, you know, don't be intimidated. I guess I would say to people, don't be intimidated by all this learning that you know, it's not like you have to learn, you know, a ton of movements or anatomy and physiology or anything like that. And, you know, that's where you come in, right? Because you're so knowledgeable about how the body works, and you're great at giving the information that's needed at the time. So for me, I love that when you talk about, you know, oh, well, this works like this, and, you know, this muscle connects with this muscle. I love that because that just adds to what I can visualize when I'm doing the movements.
Right. Yeah. So back to your, what you said about self-care, you know,
Yes.
and being, you know, turning around and saying, you know, I care for myself. I'm doing this because, you know, I want to care about I care for myself. Thomas Hanna mentioned something as well, which really stuck with me too, is, you know, there's no one, he said this, no one can fix you. There's no one in this world that is more concerned about your health than you. So who better to empower, right? And when I hear that, I'm just, that resonates with me and, you know, my core values and my belief about what the quote unquote self-care or buzzword. How do we care for ourselves, right? How can I empower myself, and how can I empower my clients? How do I empower other people to do the same thing, right? So for me, it was giving a tool. Like, yeah, I'm an exercise physiologist, kinesiologist, you know, and also do nutrition coaching and all this other things. But this, which also empowers, this is another tool, right? This is another way to empower others to take care of themselves, because again, it's active. It's active. The same way you have to make choices around what food you eat, same way you have to make choices around what kind of exercises you're going to do, or what kind of activities, you know, you're going to say yes to in your life. Whatever, it's all encompassing. And this is just another tool that helps to, you know, make your life better and healthier and more vital.
Yeah, and I think that, you know, societally we're so programmed to look outside of ourselves.
Yes.
Especially when it comes to our health. And, you know, two things. One, we're programmed to look outside of ourselves for help because we're told that we don't know anything. And we're also told that whatever we have isn't good enough. So it's always this, like, go find someone who knows better than you. Right? And then they can fix you.
Yeah.
Right? And, you know, I thought that for a long time. And I think really somatics has helped clarify that for me, to say, you know, I can actually go to my family doctor and say, this is what I want to have happen.
It gives you autonomy.
It gives you autonomy. And, you know, again, it's not magical, but it just sort of happens. It really happens very spontaneously and very naturally once you tune in to what is going on with your body and your mind. You know, like once you kind of understand the system a little bit and you pay attention to it, then all of this other stuff sort of happens, you know,
Comes together.
quite naturally. So
what has been your best experience to date?
oh gosh, my best experience. Well, you know, I think it prompted me. So I mentioned my shortness of breath, and, you know, we've been working on that in class, just breathing.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, the learning about, you know, how my body is working or not working, like prompted me to do research into other areas.
Yes.
And so I learned about, you know, how my diaphragm works.
Yeah.
And, you know, why that maybe isn't working the way it should be. And then, in fact, I just saw my cardiologist yesterday to get a test that I asked for, you know, to help me kind of really diagnose what's going on with this shortness of breath. So it was like, it's really sort of this cascade effect,
Mm-hmm.
where once you start paying attention and taking, you know, responsibility for your body and your mind, then you start to see other ways that you can, you know, put it into practice. So I think that's probably been my best. And the confidence issue.
Yes.
I think that has been the biggest plus for me.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
Confidence is contagious. Once we get it in one area,
Yes.
it starts to
Yes.
overflow into other areas, and we say, oh, if I could do this here, then I can do this here. Oh, I did that over here.
Yeah, and it's not just about like, oh, I feel good about myself, or oh,
No.
I can do this. It's really, the thing about somatics is because it's so
personal.
Yeah, personal, but also very deep. Right? Like it's a really deep knowing.
Yes.
And once you kind of come to that, you know, kind of reinvigorate that relationship you have with yourself.
Yeah.
Right? Then you start to feel like, oh, I can do other things.
Yes.
Which is what's happened for me. So, you know, I'm not going to the gym 5 times a week now, but I'm doing, you know, other kinds of coaching. I'm doing other wellness things, stuff to do with my nutrition. I'm shopping differently. I'm buying different food. I'm talking to my doctor differently. I'm, you know, all of these kind of, this is like a big ripple effect.
That's awesome. That's great.
Yeah, it's pretty exciting actually.
Yeah.
Because, you know, these are things that I've been aware of and tried different modalities for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
And, you know, they've been great. Like, you know, I did yoga years and years and years ago. And, you know, I still see a psychologist, and, you know, I do all of these different things, but it's like the somatics has been that kind of last piece.
Yes.
In the puzzle that I needed.
So
Right?
how would you describe this? You know, what would you tell people who have never heard of somatic movement education?
Well, I've tried to explain it to my family. I start off by saying it's like really, really, really slow yoga. And then they kind of go, oh, okay. And then I tell them, you know, that it's an education about how your brain and your body talk to each other, and how your body moves and can move It's sort of about retraining your brain. And I don't know if they connect to that, but that's sort of how I try to make it, you know, understandable, because it is a different modality that most people have never heard of before. So, you know, to try and put it in context to something that they might be familiar with. And then I talk to them about, you know, how it's this internal learning and reconnecting with your body.
And anyone can do it.
Anyone can do it. I mean, this is the thing. I'm like probably the most out of shape person there is, and I can do it. You know, my biggest challenge when we have class is getting up and down off the floor. That's like my whole big challenge. Everything else I can do.
Yeah.
And I can do successfully, and I can do well.
Yeah.
And that makes a big difference for me, right? To feel capable in my body.
That's incredible. And that's why I wanted you to share your journey and your success. And to, you know, there are people out there who will resonate with your story and your, you know, that it's not, even though somatic movement education has the word movement in it, you know, your story this won't chase away people who are afraid to, you know, move. It's not a sport or an exercise or some complex thing that you have to learn or, you know, get some kind of techniques and skills to like, this is all stuff that you've been given. So yeah, so share what's next. What's next, and share your future plans to build on success.
My goal right now is to do that consistency piece, because I've put a lot of things in place, a lot of, you know, initiatives. So I need to just be consistent. I just need to, like, I really want to, you know, make sure that I keep up with not only with the somatics, but with all of these other initiatives that I've put into place. So really it's about, you know, kind of turning my life into a practice. And because I'm a teacher, you know, September is coming up. I'm going back to work. It's going to be busy, right? So I want to make sure that I can maintain what I've already started. And, you know, to think of it as the, you know, you mentioned at the beginning, it's a journey. And I want to be as well as I can be in this body that I have, not in a body that somebody else tells me I should have.
Yes.
And that's something that somatics has really given me.
Yes. Well said.
I hope it helps somebody, you know, kind of get a better grip on what somatics is, because, you know, I understand how it can be a bit confusing to learn about something new, but it really is an incredibly simple and beautiful practice that anybody can do.
Yes. I mean, you summed it up beautifully.
I'm glad. I hope it's helpful.
Yes. Thank you so much for.
It's my pleasure.
For doing this little interview, for sharing your experience and sharing your knowledge. And yeah, it's been a pleasure teaching you and, you know, going along this journey with you. It's been a huge blessing. And I enjoy what I do because I just enjoy empowering people.
Yeah. And the other thing is, you know, you're great at that too. Like, honestly, you're so, you know, you're so encouraging and you're a great teacher, and you're so knowledgeable, and you just give a lot to your clients and to the classes that we experience. So from meeting me in a coffee shop, you know, off of an email a year ago, and to now, you know, it's just been it's been great to be part of your work. You know,
Thank you
it's
so
been
much. My heart is full.
Mine too. It's just, you know, it's just, I find this stuff amazing to talk about and share because it's so amazing. So.
And you're amazing.
Thank you.
So I just want to just sum up everything and give people out there who are interested in somatic movement a chance to learn about what you have learned over this past year. So anyone who is watching out there, if you're interested in somatic movement education and if you're interested in connecting with me, I am teaching 2 workshops at the end of this month, August 27th from 7 o'clock to 8 o'clock p.m. and August 30th from 3 to 4 p.m. So you can find me at www.homefitnessplus.ca, or you can give me a call, 604-600-0747. And I look forward to hearing from you. And I hope you enjoyed hearing from Sarah and learning a little bit about what this practice is all about. Thank you so much.
Thank you.